lot of questions on how I located the cab mounts for my 1951 Chevy truck project. I'm doing an S10 chassis swap, and they do make kits for this that you can buy. They're like $1,000, so I decided I'd make my own. So come with me inside the garage here and I'll kind of go over how I located everything. So I did a lot of investigating online, found some sites that had some information on them, and I will share those. Okay, here we are in the garage. I'm going to go over this little procedure I did to locate my cab mounts. Basically what I did was I located the front cab mounts off of these. There's an oval hole right here. I measured 2 inches forward of that, and that's where I located the back edge of my forward cab mounts. Did that on both sides. I believe I tacked mine in place, but you could clamp them probably. Anyway, then I attached all my front sheet metal and made sure that my wheels were centered in my wheel opening. And this is just what worked for me. Don't go totally off my measurements. Make sure you are happy with the position of your wheels and your front wheel wells before you do any welding. Some guys like to move the cab back a little bit, some forward a little bit, just based on what they like the wheel to look like in the wheel well. So, and all I have is 14-inch wheels. I'll be running something bigger, and so you might want to mock yours up with something bigger just to make sure it's really centered. Anyway, that's what I did. Then I took the measurements from the floorboard of the cab, the distance between this mount hole and this mount hole from the cab itself, and transferred it to these two mounts, and made sure that I was centered side to side, forward to back. Before I did any drilling, just use you can go to Harbor Freight or Lowe's, get a cheap hole saw that has spring steel hole saws in it. They will do the job. You don't have to buy some kind of contractor grade hole saws to drill through this stuff. Just keep it oiled, drill slow, don't try to bust through it. On my rear mounts, rear cab mounts, all I did was locate those underneath the channel that runs crossways underneath the back of the cab where the old cab mounts were attached. And I will eventually have to drill my own holes in the floorboard, but basically I just located them centered on that channel. On the bed mounts, what I did was I set jack stands underneath the back end of the cab, or excuse me, the back end of the bed. Had the front of the bed supported by a chain running up to my cherry picker, and just basically had it hanging there. I clamped my running boards between the rear fenders and the front fenders where they're going to be attached eventually, and made sure that my running boards were running parallel with my the bottom of the door opening. I used an angle gauge, magnetic angle gauge with a dial on it, to make sure that my angles were all running the same. And then I also, the splash apron on your running board, I made sure that it made it up with the bottom of the front of the bed like it was supposed to. And that was kind of how I set all that up. Now I realize it's not perfect yet. There will be some tweaking and shimming probably involved when I do go to permanently mount my sheet metal, but that's what got me close. I wanted to show you my rear bed mounts. They're very simple. At the back of your bed, there are two mounting blocks that will sit on these mounts right here. I haven't drilled a hole for them yet, but you should find that on any of your step-side Chevy pickup beds. And I will probably lose 2 inches of depth in my bed. I'll probably have to raise the floor about 2 inches. I wanted my truck to sit fairly low, and I couldn't afford, bags or anything like that. So I'm just running my leaf springs. I'm going to put a 3-inch drop on the back with some drop blocks. And then you'll also have to cut a slight tunnel on the floorboard for your transmission. I don't believe the drive shaft will be an issue. I don't think you're going to have to cut a tunnel for that. It doesn't sit that low on there. My cab sits about 4.5 inches off of the frame because I'm using that. This is a 3.5 inch, 3.5 from the chassis to the top of this mount. Probably another inch at least here with my factory S10 cab pads. That's what I'm using. I'm going to reuse those because they're in pretty good shape. But anyway, that's how it all went together. Then on the front, on the radiator mount, I basically copied another guy's design here. Just run your 1x2 inch tubing crossways between your frame rails and basically make the bottom one flush with the bottom of your front frame rails, and then you'll have to have your sheet metal sitting on a jack, get it all lined up, and then determine what your height is going to be here. So there's going to be, it's a lot of trial and error. You can buy kits for these things, but so that you don't have to build your own mounts. I don't know if they come with great instructions or not, but they're about $1,000. So I did all this for less than $100, materials and everything. So as far as the mounts themselves go, the bed mounts, cab mounts, and running board mounts. So if I can help anybody in any way with technical tips, if you got questions or comments, please feel free to share those. I will also try to include some of the links that I used to when I was doing my research before I started this, so that maybe you guys can do some of that too. So anyway, if you need anything or I can help you out, don't hesitate to ask questions. Thanks a lot.